Thank you very much. Good day to everyone. I'm glad to be here. It's an honor, and I'm glad that the World Congress Against the Death Penalty is being held here in Oslo. So, as you all remember, in 2013, 8 years with what the Western media call the hardliner president, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. His term was over, and a new president was took office after him, Mr. Hassan Rouhani. This president is also called, in the Western media again, the moderate president. One of the reasons that many youth voted for him, although they were not, we are not going to go into the details of the Iranian system, how many candidates can take part, how they are selected. We will leave it for another discussion. But there were some people who voted for Rouhani, and one of the main reasons was the promises of Hassan Rouhani about improvement of the situation of the human rights and release of the political prisoners. Soon after Rouhani took office, international community started its dialogue with Iran. I think the diplomatic relations between Iran and the West has not been this good in many, many years. There are many state leaders, especially Europeans, who have met with the Iranian president and foreign minister. Some of them have visited Tehran. Here in Norway, our foreign minister has been to Tehran. Several high-ranking officials from the State Department here have been to Iran, and also Iranian foreign minister has been to Norway. Last week he was here. So one would assume that when the leaders of the, let's say, the world leaders who represent the abolitionist movement in the world, like leaders of France, England, Germany, Norway, Italy, when they start the dialogue with the Iranian authorities, it will have an impact on the death penalty trend in the country. As Rafael mentioned, Iran has been on top of the world when it comes to the use of the death penalty, after China when it comes to the numbers, and some people say per capita the highest in the world. So in average, people are executed every day. So we were also, of course, very excited about, will this improved relations have any impact on the death penalty trends? And if we look at, if I can have my slides here, if we look at the trends of the death penalty, if you look, okay, here. So you see that these are numbers based on, before 2009 is Amnesty International's number, and after that the Human Rights. We see that there has been a general increase in number of executions since 2005. The red arrow shows where the election of, when Mr. Rouhani took office. We see a continuous increase, and last year we had a dramatic increase in number of executions. In average, in 2015, 3 people at least were executed each day in Iran. So we see that at least when it comes to the number of executions, this improved dialogue hasn't led to improvement in the trends of the death penalty. Most of those executed, of course, are charged with drug offenses that Roya Woodman will talk later about. But if we look at those numbers, we see that also last year we had the highest number of drug-related executions in more than 25 years, actually. And the comparison of the 30 months of Rouhani with 30 months of the hardliner Ahmadinejad shows an increase in number of executions with more than 40%. So these are hard facts. And I believe that we actually underestimate the real number. The real number might be even higher. So, the question is, what can the government do? Because if you talk to some Western politicians and some people inside Iran, they say that the government, the president, doesn't have the authority to do anything with the trend of executions. It might be true to some extent, because we know that the judiciary issues the death sentences and implements them, but the president and his cabinet have the choice and the possibility to express their discontent if they don't agree. It has not happened once that Mr. Rouhani or any of the ministers have expressed any disagreement to the trends of executions. The few times they have had the chance to do so, they have done the opposite. Last year, Mr. Rouhani, one of the first times he actually expressed his opinion about executions to an Italian journalist. He said, since most of the executions are due to drug-related charges, if Iran abolishes the death penalty, it will be dangerous for the West, because all the drug smugglers will come to the West. So not only he didn't show any disagreement with the trends, but he also defended them. Last week, I asked this question to Mr. Zarif, who was visiting Oslo, and again he used the same excuse, that we have a high number of drug offenses, drug smuggling, and that's why we have a high number of executions. Although inside Iran, even the high-ranking officials in the judiciary, they have stopped using this explanation. Since December 2014, even the officials in the Iranian judiciary say that executions have not deterred against the crime. The drug smuggling has not decreased, and executions are not helping. But the Iranian president still uses drug smuggling as an excuse to justify the high number of executions. So, no expression of disagreement by Mr. Rouhani so far. When it comes to public executions, as you know, Iran is one of the few countries executing people publicly in front of ordinary people, even children watch executions. This is the only area where the president can actually have an impact, because according to the Iranian law, the Council of the Provincial Council of Security, I think it's called, which is headed by the governor, who is representing the president in the provinces. He can veto public executions. So if it was in the president's policy to reduce number of executions, he could have used his legal authority to at least decrease number of public executions. If we look at the trends of the public executions, we see that it's more or less the same trend as before. So they don't even use their legal authority to have an impact on public executions. And finally, they can have impact on the activities of the civil society. The government can actually increase the liberties of the civil society. We know that Iranian civil society is very active. It's one of the few countries in the Middle East where there is an abolitionist civil society, both inside and outside the country. It is a pity that Mrs. Basmari couldn't be here. She represents Legam, which is one of the campaigns. One of the members of this campaign, Yes Mohammadi, was recently sentenced to 10 years in prison for taking part in this campaign, in a peaceful campaign against the death penalty. So, and there hasn't been any protest from the government's side. So, the liberty for the civil society hasn't occurred during the presidency of Mr. Rouhani. So, our question is, why is so? despite all the dialogue with the Western countries, despite the good relations with the abolitionist countries, how come that the executions haven't gone down, or we don't see a trend? And I think, I hope we can discuss it, I think it's because, unfortunately, the death penalty hasn't been on the agenda of the Western countries. I'm very, yesterday we saw many politicians talking about the death penalty, and I really know that Western leaders, they really believe in how important abolition of the death penalty is. But when it comes to foreign policy, unfortunately, I don't think it is on the agenda, because we see what is on the agenda. The nuclear agreement has been on the agenda, and we see that the Iranian authorities have actually followed the recommendations by the West. But when it comes to the death penalty, I think that it's, I haven't been in the closed meetings between the Iranian authorities and the Western leaders, but I don't think that reduction in the death penalty has been a condition for improvement of the improvement of the relations with the West. We know that there are many firms, European companies are preparing to go to Iran, and I think that if the West puts reduction in the number of executions, limitation in the use of the death penalty, and changing the law as a condition for improving their economic relations, it will happen. Because in Iran, the people are actually a different opinion. It's not that, as I mentioned to you, there is an abolitionist movement. There are people who are working on different aspects on the death penalty. There are people, in the case of murder, according to Sharia, we have something called qisas, or retribution, where families of the murder victims, they can, according to the law, decide on whether there should be retribution, meaning death penalty, or not. And we have been monitoring this trend, and last year we could see that number of families who say no to the death penalty, meaning they choose forgiveness, was higher than the cases where execution was implemented. And this trend was in, I think, more than at least 23 different provinces, while retribution death penalty took place in 19 provinces. So there is a will among the people of Iran. There is an active civil society. There is discussion within the system about reducing number of executions for some drug crimes, but it's not happening. And I think that the Western countries have a golden opportunity to have a positive impact on the situation of the human rights, and especially the death penalty in Iran, but they are not using it. So we can come back to more under question and answer. I think my time is up. Thank you.